Sup, y'all? Bring you guys another video. So there's a lot of talk lately about a potential fight between Terence Crawford and Vergil Ortiz Jr. Now, the chance of this fight happening is pretty slim, but let's say it does. Let's say it does happen. Who do y'all think would win? Crawford or Ortiz? Now, the reason why you're wondering why there's a lot of talk about this fight happening, in the future, a potential fight between Crawford and Vergil Ortiz. The reason why there's a lot of talk about it lately is because if you haven't been following the sport of boxing, Ortiz recently fought Morris Hooker, Mighty Mo Hooker, over in Texas. And if you guys don't know, Hooker is part of Crawford's stable, trained by Bomac. So they're teammates. So Crawford was in the building, and he was there. He saw the fight live in person, and Vergil Ortiz was there as well. After the fight, Vergil Ortiz called him out. He said, "I'm looking at you, Crawford. I'm looking at you, bud." And then he was asked if he thinks he's ready for Crawford, and Ortiz said, and I quote, he said, "I don't care if I'm ready or not. I want that fight." Pretty much calling out Terence Crawford. And Terence, apparently he got interviewed after the fight, and he talked about fighting Vergil Ortiz one day, and he didn't look interested. He talked about how Vergil has a lot of work to do, that he has to make his way up, that he's not ready yet, and that fight ain't ready just yet. In my opinion, the way I look at it, we all know that a Spence Crawford fight ain't happening anytime soon. Possibly will never happen, looking at the way both fighters are reacting towards, being asked about fighting one another. When you ask Spence about fighting Crawford, he talks about how 80-20 split. When you ask Crawford about fighting Spence, he talks about that fight ain't happen no more. So it looks like both Spence and Crawford ain't fighting anytime soon. And I think we can all agree that the fight we all want to see Crawford in next is against Spence, but it ain't happening. The next big fight is Manny Pacquiao, but chances are that's probably not going to happen as well. Next big fight after that is Porter, but it seems like that's not going to happen too. So if those big fights are not happening for Crawford, might as well fight Vergil Ortiz. And if you follow, I think, Oscar De La Hoya, after the fight, he on Twitter, he pinged, he at Terence Crawford and told him to tell Bob to call him to potentially make this fight. And it's not a bad fight. We know Vergil Ortiz is young. He's not that experienced just yet. Still growing, still learning, growing into his prime. 22 freaking years old. Now 17-0. 17 wins come by way of knockout TKO after he knocked out Morris Hooker in Texas. Vergil is still improving. He's still learning. Normally, typically, a fighter is in their prime around their late 20s, early 30s. That's when a fighter is in their prime. When you're 22 years old, you're still learning, you're still getting the experience you need. And Vergil Ortiz is still doing that. And, man, he's doing a great job, in my opinion. Terence Crawford, in my opinion, he's one of the greatest out there today. Top 10, top 5, top 3, pound for pound, no doubt about it. Undefeated for a reason. 33 years old, still in his prime, in my opinion. Wants a big fight. He wants a big fight. He's hungry for a big fight. And if he can't get those big fights, in my opinion, I think Vergil is actually a pretty big fight when you think about it. If they put it in Texas, I think he's pretty popular in Texas. A decent crowd showed up to support him when he fought Morris Hooker. It's pretty much all his fans that showed up, even though Morris Hooker is from Texas as well. Really, nobody really showed up to support him. Let's be honest, right? Nobody showed up to support Morris Hooker. Everybody was booing him. So, if they put this fight in Texas, they could sell some good tickets, in my opinion. I would love to see it. Obviously, right now, you can't go against Crawford. The dude's one of the best fighters out there in the world today. Arguably number 2, number 1. He's up there. He's up there, in my opinion. Not number 1 in my list. Canelo's number 1 in my list. But Crawford is definitely top 3. No doubt about it. And, Vergil would actually make at least. I'll tell you this much: Virgil may lose this fight due to the lack of experience, but he will definitely give it his all and put his heart out there and make this a tough night for Crawford. I think Crawford would outbox him, use his height, reach, and experience and boxing IQ to beat Vergil Ortiz, possibly stop Vergil Ortiz, honestly. But at the same time, it's not the end of the world if Ortiz loses. It's happened before. Canelo lost to Floyd, and look where Canelo is right now. He could take it as a learning experience like Canelo did when he fought Floyd. So right now, I'd go with Crawford. But who knows? Maybe sometime down the line, maybe 4 or 5 years from now, if Crawford's still around and boxing, if once he's slowed down and getting old and all that, maybe Ortiz by then would be a hella ready to fight Crawford. But honestly, I don't mind this fight happening right now. They can make it this year. I'd be happy. I'd watch. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know your thoughts. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Like always, have a great day. All right, thanks.